Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I'm A.L. Johnson with Elevating Men. Welcome to the show. So, in our last series, we had an Elevating Men first. We invited a panel of ladies to join the conversation for a four-part series on the war going on between men and women in our communities. It was so eye-opening. And so if you want to check that out, go to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. You can search Elevating Men. You'll be able to catch up on that conversation. It was really good, I promise. So in this new series entitled Old School versus New School, the Generational Breakdown, we're going to explore the difference in thought process between the old school and the new school. And we want to answer a very serious question. This is important. Is society getting better or worse, and why? Right? This is going to be a good one. So go ahead and grab your drinks, grab your popcorn or whatever. I got some lemonade. It's virgin lemonade, nothing extra in there. But go ahead and get your drinks, get your popcorn, and we'll be right back here in just a second. Welcome back. Now, for those of you who don't know who we are and what we do, we're Elevating Men. And the premise of this is for us to help men improve their lives so that they can be better for their families, because we believe that strong families build strong communities, and that's what it's all about. And we say elevating men with an ing, not elevated, because we don't assume that we have all the answers, right? We're just a group of men who have committed ourselves to excellence in raising our families and providing and in being the best men that we can be. And so it's a constant process that we're going through, and we believe that conversation is the basis for change. And so that's why we do this live stream. We want you to join in with us. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave those, because we definitely want to hear from you. And let's just make this a great conversation. So to kick it off, I've got one question for everybody. We're just going to do it round robin style. And short answer, quick, like 10 seconds, right? Yes, no, and a little bit of why. But in your opinion, is society improving or declining? And first, we're going to start with our special guest. His name is Josh. We wanted to make sure that we had some people from every generation, right? And so Josh, he's in his early 20s. I'm in my late 30s. We got LaRon in his mid 30s. We got Boykin. We ain't going to say what his age don't matter, right? Because it's just a number. But, we're going to look at this through every lens possible. And so, Josh, in your opinion, as a young 20-something, is society declining or is it improving?
I personally think that society is improving. I think that everybody's just becoming more open and understanding of other people, allowing us to mesh together better.
Awesome. Drew, what do you think, man? We getting better or worse?
Dang, you will come to me. I think we're getting worse.
Okay.
When I say worse, I believe Josh had the perfect answer. People are definitely improving on a societal standpoint, socially and socializing. However, our control, our independence is declining, and that is making us angrier.
Interesting perspective. LaRon, LBZ, LaRon Barnes, what are your thoughts, brother?
It's crazy how we had two different answers, and now you're about to get a third one. How is that? I believe it's not improving or declining. Now, what I mean is it's all perspective, because as we look at our individual lives, even on this call, where are we at? Are we all not men who or things are improving in? Like, you know what I mean? And we're doing certain things, we're doing it right. And then there's some people who, or not, but it's all about what we are putting our attention on and what we are focusing on. We could say as a whole, but I know a lot of good men and a lot of good people whose families are doing amazingly well. But that's what I see. But it depends on where you're looking at it from.
Makes sense. Makes perfect sense. Melvin Brown, we see you out there, man. Thanks for tuning in. We always appreciate your support. If you're watching this, please share it. Let other people know that the conversation is about to get started and we need their input as well. Lastly, I'm going to go to my brother from another mother, Mr. Lauren Jones, with the shades on. And so, since you're looking like you're looking, bro, you got to wrap your response. We're waiting.
Hey, I need somebody to check his lemonade. I just want to say that right quick. And my short answer and the right answer is we are improving.
We are improving. And just a little tidbit. Why do you feel that?
I'll take a page out of LaRon's book, and my circle is always still sharpening steel. And so I have to say we're improving because we are consistently challenging each other to be great.
Love it, love it, love it. And so in our last series, like we said, we talked about the division between men and women. And we believe that family really is the foundation of everything. And so if, and that's an if, we're trying to figure it out. That's what the series is about. But if society is declining, it is, in my opinion, personally, that would have to start somewhere within the family structure, right? There was a video that went viral a couple of weeks ago from TD Jakes. If you're watching this and you remember that video, give us a like, a comment or something, let us know. But TD Jakes said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said that he feels that we are training up our young women in the modern age to be men, right? This is a conversation that Andrew Boykin and I have quite a bit. About male responsibility, female desire, etc. And so, Andrew, when you just kind of the clip that I sent in the group of TD Jakes, what are your thoughts on that in general? Are we raising our women to be men, and is that hurting the family structure?
The easy answer is yes. And when I say that, are we raising our girls to be men, our women to be men? Yeah, we are. We're teaching them how to change the oil. We're teaching them how to handle guns. We're teaching them how to defend their family. We're teaching them everything that they need to do just in case that man does not find them, just in case that man does not man up when he finds them, just in case that man loses his way after he finds them. We're preparing for worst case scenario because we unfortunately are today's man. And yeah, we know what we're about. That's why we're raising our women to be prepared for
Okay,
us.
and so if we're raising our women to be more prepared to take care of themselves in absence of a man, do you believe that absolves the man of any responsibility in his mind? We know that it doesn't, but in his mind, do you feel that that's what's at play? She can kind of handle it. I can be less of a man today.
Yeah, of course. And in fact, not only is he glad that she knows how to change the oil, it's like that's one less thing I got to do, So I can sit back and I can go to the spa. I can sit back and I can get my hair done. I can sit back and I can go shopping. I can sit back and become the woman.
Wow. Okay, so this is a generation rap, and so we went on one end of the spectrum. I think somebody got some static. I think I know where it's at. Let me.
What it is?
Okay. Technical difficulty. We're past that. All right. So, we went on one end of the spectrum. So, from your viewpoint, Andrew, you have been able to see the evolution over a couple decades of an adult, and so you've seen men weaken and women strengthen. Josh, with you being in your early 20s, like what is your perspective on that? Do you feel like you see any change between, say, your mother and father's generation, your grandparents, versus you and your friends?
So I do see change, but I wouldn't say exactly that we're teaching them to be men. I would say more like we're teaching them to be able to fend for themselves. I feel that in previous generations, women were taught to be so dependent on men, which in the reality of the world isn't the best thing because when there's not a man there, they have to be able to do something for themselves. So I believe that they are being taught to be more independent, but not that they're taught to be men. Yeah, it's really mostly how I feel.
That makes sense. That makes sense. We got a comment from our lady Devin Elise over at Lifted KC. She was actually a part of our panel, the last series that we talked about. Very great insight. Definitely follow her. But she says we're being taught to be independent, which isn't the original structure. We aren't taught to be soft and feminine because we have to be ready to step up. Men feel less needed, so they step back. And the family structure as a whole is diminishing, which I definitely see as a problem. I'll go to you, LaRon. What would you say? Just in your opinion, are women being trained to be men, and is that creating some sort of issue?
Well, I would first have to ask the question. Can you all hear? Y'all got me. I will first have to ask the question: what is it that is defined as being raised as a man? Because independency has nothing to do with being a man. That has something to do with being an individual. And so therefore, it depends on what society is putting on what society is saying what a man is. So I definitely would have to ask that first. And then I would go along with what you asked Andrew as well, is that it has, and it even does at times make the man feel a little less than if his personality is a provider and wanting to feel needed. And most men want to feel needed, but not every man needs to feel needed from the perspective of, like Andrew said, she can do this, that, and the other where I can relax and be lazy. You know what I mean? So it's not a man to pump somebody's gas. You know what I'm saying? So it's really
I feel you on
defining it.
that. Right. So there's like a little thread between what you and Josh said. Women need a certain level of independence just to be able to take care of themselves as a human being. Like that isn't even gender specific. But although that woman can pump her gas, I'm just curious, if there's a man present, do you feel that he should? Like, are we past the point of traditional chivalry? Because I have noticed that some women take offense to a man wanting to step in and do traditional things because they feel as if they're being looked at as less than, or they can't handle it. And so, is chivalry dead, or is that something that we should still partake in as men?
And here's the thing, and that's a very, very a great question, Andrew, asking that, because here it comes down to individualism. It comes down to partnership. It comes down to what y'all think work and what doesn't. There's no concrete thing on how a relationship should work. It comes down to, if this is the man that you are and this is what you offer, and that woman really desires and loves it, go ahead and do it. And if it's something that the woman or vice versa, the man absolutely loves, and you don't do it, and you're working something out, maybe it's okay to work on doing it. So I'm a person that I'm more of an old school person. I open doors, I do this and that. I do a lot of old school stuff, but it doesn't make me less of a man if I don't. And if my woman is okay with me not necessarily doing that, I shouldn't let outside people speak into our relationship and tell us what we should be doing, because people will do that. And then they don't even get the same treatment from other people, nor do they treat people the same. So it's individualism or
Man, and
individual.
you definitely hit on something when you said taking in other people's opinions. It's hard not to do that in the society that we're in now, with everything being online and social media. Everything is opened up to the opinions of the masses. And so, Lojo, I just want to come to you next. I haven't given you an opportunity to speak. How do you think social media plays into this when it comes to different perspectives coming into individuals' households? Is that an issue, or is it something that just raises conversation that needs to be had?
No, I mean, it's definitely an issue. And I think the reason it's an issue is because we haven't properly taught the younger generation how to utilize social media. And so it becomes an end all be all, right? And so, what they're seeing every day is more than just words. It's a lifestyle, because that's how, I mean, they were born into the social media era, so it's all they know. They don't know a world where, you couldn't be on the phone to use the internet, or you could, if you wanted to use the internet, you couldn't use the phone, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So social media has guided their thought process in a lot of ways.
Okay. I think you may be in a space where your internet is
Social
lagging.
media puts the end result, and it doesn't put the work that goes into getting to whatever that desired finish is. And so uh, uh you know
Um, okay, so I'm gonna jump in. I think you're lagging a little bit.
how we
Might need to get a little closer to the Wi-Fi. But hey, if you're watching this, I think we're having some technical difficulties, so I need some help from the audience. If you could give us a like or a heart or something, just to let us know that you hear us okay, we'll definitely appreciate that. Andrew, I'm going to go to you. So we're talking about the fact that social media is where the conversation happens, where all this discourse happens and people form their opinions. Prior to all of that, because when I was young, let me see, we went Black Planet, and then there was MySpace, and then, Facebook. Now we got Instagram. All these different things didn't exist previously. So where were these conversations had before? And did they have as much impact as the social media of today?
Yeah, before the computer age, there was a thing called television. Before that, there was radio. And before that, there was the street corner. And the street corner basically was social media. So when you walked outside and you walked up to that group of guys and they looked you up and down and saw what kind of tennis shoes you were wearing, or saw what your hair looked like, or saw what your lack of muscles looked like, that they were sizing you up. And the vice versa. When you walked to that group of guys, you saw either what you did not have, what you think you needed, or where it actually told you where you were amongst society, because they were society.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that it had as large of an impact though? Because, and the reason I say that, you see something on TV or you hear it on the radio, that's a one-way communication. There's no discourse. And then you have to go somewhere else and you kind of publicly have that conversation. Now the conversation is with us in the palm of our hand 24/7 on a much larger scale. And so is there more peer pressure to think a certain way? Or do you think that that's just a weakness that we've developed in society?
I think that's a weakness that we developed because with social media and the internet, many people have different personas. Many people hide. You never see the real person. Back then, you were actually looking right in the face of your peers. There was nothing to hide behind. So the pressure was right there in your face.
That makes perfect sense. Josh, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel any difference in pressure when you run your ideas through the filter of social media and you see other people's opinions? How much does that affect you when it comes to like your core beliefs about family and life in general?
I think social media has had a huge impact on society. It makes us so much more like conscious of our ego and conscious of what we're doing, but more about what people think about us. Because, like you said before, if somebody thought something about us, it wasn't as in our face as it is with social media. Because somebody from Tokyo could think something about me, and I know that now because he can comment on my post. So,
Right.
I think that it has kind of just made everybody a lot more sensitive, and they can't really think for themselves as much as they would have be able to before, just because they're only thinking of what people think about them. They take everybody else's ideas instead of really thinking about their own and sticking true to themselves.
Right. So Ron, I wanted to ask you about this. Programming, like, it's huge. You're a motivational speaker and a life coach, and so you spend a lot of your time analyzing people's thought processes. And so when we think about the media from back then, so we see the reruns. It wasn't live for us, you know what I'm saying, but we see the reruns of, the Cosby Show, Moving On Up, all these different things. We hear the oldies, so to speak, as far as the music and different things like that. Just say if we were just imagining like the 50s or the 60s from what we know of it, having not been there, do you feel that the messaging was more positive when it comes to building a family and the relationship between men and women? Do you think that now our actual music and the media that we consume is a lot more negative, or is it like I'm just all the same across the board?
Well, honestly, I really seem to think that, and I think you said that perfectly, bro. From not being back in that time and observing it and looking, I believe that families were a lot more closer because we were closer to slavery being, it was closer to us. So let me see what I mean by that. And the reason why I say that is because we had to tell ourselves that we're black and we're proud. So we had to do things to build us up as people. We had to do certain things to build us up as people, to make us feel good. So anything that we put out, we wanted to put out to be a good image for ourselves as a people, and not just individually where it's all about me. And now we live in a society where there's no more about it being taking a village to raise a child, but I raise my own child and you better not tell my child what to do. So since we live in that day and age, come on now, I'm talking to you. But since we live in that day and age, I don't mean to preach. I'm gonna start preaching for a second. Since we live in that day and age, and it's about me, and not about community. It's about I'm gonna get mine. I got my money. I got the shine. I'm in the limelight. Since it's about me, it's been taken off the family structure and not being about we. So yes, because we were on one accord with the cause, because we were moving in a direction, moving who we are as a people in a direction. Because of that, we know that we had to be closer. But now, once again, we live in a day where it's about me, it's about I, and therefore, because it's about that, it can't be about we, which is the family structure.
Man, you know what? I have to agree with you. I got to agree with you on the cohesiveness of that era versus the individuality of today. One thing that I would question though is the messaging in the lyrics, right? Lauren and I, we were having this conversation offline, and you know, a lot of times we give the younger generation a bad rap, right? We say, well, all the music is about drugs and it's all about sex and it's all about cheating. And, you know, back in the day, you know, all we talked about was kumbaya and all these different things. But if you actually go back and listen, Papa was a Rolling Stone. You know, there was the cleanup woman that was ready to take another woman's man. We had Rick James. He was a super freak. You know what I'm saying? We had all of those messages back then. And so is the messaging just more effective now, or are we turning a blind eye to what's always existed? Lauren, what do you think about that?
I would say that it is more direct, is the phrase that I would use. I think back in the day, it was more subliminal messaging as it related to, you know, things like, you know, pain, sex, drugs. It was more subliminal. So they were using certain words to subliminally talk about a certain thing. And I think now it's just more direct. You know, there is no beating around the bush with the language that's being used. It's, you know, if you a B word, you a B word. Like there is no cover up. Like they're just gonna come out right and say it, you know. And so it's not that it's different. It's more. I would say it's more direct now than it used to be.
All right, Drew, we in your era, was it more direct back then? Is Lojo right on that? Or, I mean, was it direct? Was it indirect? What was it?
So it was just as direct as he described it, which was indirect. You had something called the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission, if I said that right. So if you said bitch or ass or anything, you were going to be fined. And now that those regulations have been deregulated, so that the times can progress, basically, as Lojo stated. Hey, anything can be said now because that's what gets the ratings.
Okay, so when I look back, I see like free spirit. You know, maybe if we go like hippie culture, you know, um, we say now like love is love. I feel like that quote or that statement applies back then as well. I believe people were extremely open. From what I see on the outside looking in, like I said, I wasn't there, and so sometimes I believe that when we have this generational conversation, I believe sometimes we get stuck in the era that we grew up in and the good times that we had, and we always compare everything else negatively. And so, with me being a 39-year-old man, I'm in the middle of both sides. It's easy for me to see some of the good and bad in the previous generation, but I do find myself having a bias when it comes to younger people. I'm like, you hear that, Bess? What is he talking about? Drew, you got something to say?
Yeah, real quick. What I'd like to challenge each and every one of you all to do, including our listening audience, is to look at some of the 60s and 70s Black sitcoms specifically, and then look at some of the 60s and 70s sitcoms, period. What I want you to do is notice the dress, the style of dress. Specifically, men's pants were super tight, just like today's men's football pants, which now gets the women to watch more football. Look at no, seriously. Look at like westerns and spy shows, any kind of show on television. Look at the man's pants, see how tight they were, and also look at the woman and see if what she's revealing also, because what was going on back then was was being introduced, sex was being sold. They weren't speaking it, but mom and dad, grandpa, they were watching it. They were tuned in.
So are we saying this was an evolution? So would you say back then it just became, we started from a suggestive point of view with the clothing, and then just over time, now it's just words, boom, just blatant, kind of like Lauren said. That
Well,
makes sense. That makes sense.
but now you got now you got the stretch pants that, you know, hey, like I said, evolution basically has taken sex from here to here.
I mean, when they was grinding on Soul Train, bro, I seen them old Soul Train clips, man. They had the little one-piece onesie jumpsuits, and everybody's, you know, grinding, having a good time. And so, I got to sit with that one for a minute. Josh, what do you think about that?
I could definitely see where he's coming from. It is much more open in today's society. I mean, like, I scroll Facebook every day and I see these people that say, like, talking about different bodies they have and all these uh, just sexual things that personally myself I would never say publicly, but they're constantly telling all their business publicly, which it's just so open in today's society. Personally, I don't know where that got taught from, but it's something that I don't personally agree with the rest of my generation.
I get it. I get it. We got a comment from Karen Buckner. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you. She says secret lovers evolved to OPP, other people's property, right before my eyes. I'm 55 years old. Thanks for that comment. We appreciate it.
Hey, Andrew.
Okay. Drew.
So, secret lover came. Well, I'm not saying it did that, but me and Mrs. Jones, me and Mrs. Jones, not Miss Jones, Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on.
Right. Yeah, he was the milkman. He was creeping while the husband was at work. So I know what you mean. So if this has been an evolution, why do you feel that this was introduced to us? Because we know that media is controlled, like in a massive way. Nothing reaches the airwaves without it going through the powers that be. And so where did this sexual revolution come from? And we don't have all the answers, but what do you feel the intent of the sexual revolution was? And I'll just go back to you, Drew, just to keep the conversation going.
So you remember when I said a couple of episodes back that sex was stressful expression? Well, how do people really take out their frustrations after they've gone to their job and they've been degraded, or they get their paycheck and it doesn't even pay the bills, and They just got so much pain inside of them. The best way to express themselves is through that stressful expression, through sex. So sex basically gives us a way to get stuff off of us, to relax again. And media, society knows how to soothe the savage beast, which is why we have all of these portals that are beaming into us, showing us how to de-stress.
If I were to throw my personal opinion in there, I believe that, and this is multifaceted, so bear with me, but I really do believe that the sexual revolution was really targeting men and male weakness, because sex is one of our primary drivers. It's one of our primary motivators as men. And so I believe I read a statistic that men, on average, sex crosses your mind like every 8 seconds, or something along those lines. And so when you see that we have these, Lojo's like, I ain't thinking about it that often. I don't know. I believe it's, maybe partially, subliminally. I don't know, but that's what the stats
every
said.
15.
Is it 15? Okay, 15. My bad.
15.
A couple times a minute, at least. We'll go with that. A couple times a minute, right? And so if that's our natural, that's our natural thought process, and then you start adding all the TV shows, the music, the magazines, what you see on Instagram, everything, sex, 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 sex. It weakens a man's willpower, right? And so when you look at, pornography, et cetera, these things actually weaken our ability to say no, right? And so now we have a super sexually charged society where things is just like kind of laissez-faire. We just kind of do what we will, we do what we want. And it creates a situation where we don't stop and create commitments before we create responsibilities. And so now we have a breakdown of the home because we have a bunch of sexually charged men who are out here spreading their seed everywhere. We also have women who are willing to allow that to happen. And so now we have children outside of a family structure. Now we have the animosity in the court system, the child support system, et cetera. And so I really believe that all of the sexual freedom was really designed to tear apart the family. And that might be a big reach, but what's your opinion on that, Laurent?
Well, it's definitely an agenda. It's definitely an agenda when it comes to why it's put out there. It all comes down to, I believe, control and manipulation. That, of course, it's sex sells. You hear that a lot. Sex sells. That's one of the reasons sex does sell. It sells itself. You don't need nobody to sell it for you. You feel what I'm saying? And so I think what happens is that in order to, one of the ways to control what we do as a society is to manipulate the way that we use and perceive sex. Because sex does a lot of different things. Sex can either build up your communication with your partner, or sex can tear your family up. So putting out there, when you see a lot of sexual things dealing with, the milkman or cheating and different things like that, all that does is it sparks up fantasies. It sparks up curiosity. It sparks up a lot of these imaginations that we want to put ourselves in, men and women. And I can agree that it, first of all, it targets both. Let's not get it twisted. But I believe that a lot of men, I'm gonna leave it at both, because it's both. I had to realize that it's men and women. But at the same time, it's an agenda behind controlling how we act in society. You hear what I'm saying? In multiple different ways, yo. Like whether we're gonna be cheaters, whether we're gonna compare what our sex life is in relation is to others. So it's a way to control how we move in society. And since sex sells, then we can put sex out there to have people doing certain things that they normally wouldn't do. It's an agenda.
Love it, love it. Let's go to the comment section really quick. We got a comment here from Arian Tyson. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate your support. He says they wanted to control the population of people of color. It's predicted that within the next 20 years, America will become primarily people of color. I have heard that before. I have heard that. What I don't understand is if they're wanting to control the population, meaning decrease it, I'm assuming, in people of color, why would they push sex so heavily? which would actually have the counter effect. And so that would be my question to you. If you could leave your response in the comments, I'll definitely read that and get back to it. We have Miss Buckner again. She says sex feeds insecurities. That's something that you jumped on, LaRon, and I wholeheartedly agree. I was kind of making a joke a few days ago about, like, you can't even make a R&B playlist, right, and have a good time with your lady, because half the songs are going to be about cheating. It's going to kill the mood. So I know exactly what she means. It can definitely feed insecurity. We've got Corey Infamy. Always appreciate you, bro. Says, well said, AL, and the breakdown of the family structure ultimately legitimizes the corporate and government powers. I agree. And John argued, thanks for tuning in. This is by design, action to tear apart community and meaningful connection and commitment, a godless age. Yes, I agree with that. Out of the comments that were left by our viewers, would anyone just like to add to anything that was said there? Lauren.
So I'll add, because I think I would say in my household, sex is a big deal, right? And the reason that it's a big deal in my household is because I started out as a young father, right? And so one of my goals was to make sure that, I did what was important and necessary to try to make it so that my offspring didn't have kids at a young age, right? And a lot of it was built around education. I am very, very active in what are you listening to? What are you watching? If I'm driving and you're on your iPad in the car and I hear something like, hey, let's stop, let's have a conversation. What are we listening to? What is it about? And I feel like, we tie a lot of things into how we've grown or what we were taught as kids. I know that, the guy talked about a godless society, right? And I don't believe that that's what the intention was. I can't tell you it was anything religious, but more so to pull families apart. So that I'm not even going to say nuclear family, but that whatever one's perception of family is constantly getting challenged by a new ideology, a new thought process. And so as evolution happens, we're constantly having to absorb new information that forces us to question what we currently know. And then we make our decisions from there. Are we going to stick to what we know, or are we going to allow this new information to guide us and take us in a different direction? And therefore we guide our children into a different direction. And that's just kind of how evolution works, right? Are you going to stay here, or are you going to pivot based off of new information? And so I think we have to be very, very cognizant of the world around us, and how we communicate, because it's so easy for us as adults to forget what it's like to be a kid because we're not children anymore. And so it's easy for us to forget how we used to act when we were kids and how manipulated our minds were, because now we're strong and we know exactly what is and what isn't, when the reality of it is our actions are saying something different, and so you just have to really understand who you are, understand how your value lies, and make sure that you are implanting positive things that the next generation can grow from, right? Because a lot of the things that we do, right, are so maybe our kids don't have it as hard. We say that all the time. I don't want my kids to have it as hard as I did growing up, because like our life sucked, and in some cases it was probably rough. In some cases it wasn't, but a lot of the things that we do are so it makes it easier. And so when we see the next generation having it easy, all of a sudden now we're mad. Yeah. Like you, this is exactly what the intent was. So why are you now upset? Right.
Makes sense. Good points. And so we're talking about, a conversation across multiple age groups, and just trying to figure out, are we moving forward or backwards as a society. Something that I think about pretty often is life expectancy. I'm an insurance agent. I sell life insurance. That's what I do every day. And so, you know, I'm always thinking about those types of things. And I was looking at a study. And so, say like in the early 1900s, did you know that people only lived on average to about 47 years old? And now people live to about the age of 80. So my next question really has to do with the pace at which we introduce information to the next generation, and is it healthy or not, right? Because when we think about, you know, grandma, great grandpa, and we kind of hear the stories, well, if you think about it, they were living on a farm, you know. By the age of 16, 17, they already had a ton of responsibility. They were already having children. They stopped going to school at 12, 13 years old, right? And so for, you know, a 16-year-old in the 1930s had a maturity level that was completely different than, say, a 25-year-old in 2022. And so just kind of sticking with that, do we feel that maybe we're moving too fast today? Or did they have it right at the beginning, you know, that we need to go ahead and expose our children to as much as possible, as early as possible, and go ahead and start our lives? Like, what effect do you feel that that's having? Lauren, I see you nodding your head. What are your thoughts?
Information overload. Information overload, man. These kids are overloaded with so much information right now. And whether or not we recognize it, they are being forced to understand things that their brains aren't developed to understand. And that's just the truth. It's not, well, you got to present it in a format that they understand. Some of the stuff they are just not ready for. Right. And so if you don't have that level of control, I won't even use the word control. If you don't have that open dialogue, to really kind of, hey, this isn't for you right now, and this is why, but also understand that, you know, if that kid has already been presented that information, now it's up to us to have the right conversation, you know, and not allow society to dictate every single bit of information that's going into our children's ears and their minds and their spirits. Uh, you know, so yes, they are on overload, which is why you see a lot of kids reacting the way that they react, right? We call it action. All it is a reaction. And that's why we see it, because they're on information overload. We don't take the time to just sit back and just have good old family time, you know, shut the phones off, even shut the TV off sometimes, you know, and just interact amongst each other. You know, I'm constantly having to challenge myself to, you know, say, hey, son, put the iPad down. You know what I'm saying? And just eat. Just eat. Like, I just want you to eat your food,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, because those kitchen table conversations are important, man. And man, listen, a tablet will get right in the middle of that. For sure, for sure. LeBron, man, how do you feel about that, man? Because I saw your face when I said, you know, people only live to like 50. And so the timeline was compressed in their ability to build a family and create a life for themselves. And here we are today living until the age of 80. We don't even get out of school until we're 18 or 21 if you go to college, 22. And so how do you feel that time factor affects this conversation about how families are built, how it's structured, the difference between the old and the new? Are we moving too fast? Are we moving too slow? What are your thoughts?
I first have to say, you know, even along with what Lojo said as far as information overload, I think the overload comes from how much information we're trying to consume. I think the information itself being out there is an amazing thing, but knowing exactly what information that we are looking to consume is where the importance of it stands, because the information being out there and us knowing what we want and where we're going with the information, that's actually extremely beneficial. Now, I mean, but I definitely understand, I definitely understand how that can play a factor in being negative. But I always say, for every yin, there's a yang. For every positive, there's a negative. It's called balance. That's what life is about. It's about balance. Now, how did it help with them having a shorter lifespan back then? Imagine if they had the information that we had now, that they could accelerate the way that they live their lives. Imagine how much they would have been able to accomplish what we have now with a shorter lifespan. And so, even where we are now, it's not the information being out there that's wrong, but how we're deciding to utilize the information or what we're deciding to look at. We can't put it on the technology. We got to put it on the person. We got to put it on the individual. And even that goes back to parenting. We talked about, we had a few options. It's about instructing our children, directing the. I just put up a video today, said to train up a child the way they should go, they shouldn't depart. The problem is we're training up the child the same way that we're trained up. We're training them and giving them our bad habits, our bad way, and then we're wondering why they're like they are. It's because they're a reflection of us.
Man, listen. The cycle continues. The cycle continues. Andrew, this is a conversation we've had a little bit. Like I said, 1920s, life was one way. 2022, it's a different way. How do you feel that time difference in our lifespan and how quickly we pursue a family has an effect on the way things are now?
If I heard you the way that I think I heard you, the difference between then and now, there is no difference. It's just semantics, just the way we call 2022 versus 1902. And the reason I say that, you had the internet today, you had libraries yesterday. And before libraries became popular, you still had books. What we fail to realize is that we could educate ourselves completely on the internet free. Just like some people found that they could educate themselves completely through the library for free. Information has always been there. We've just never taken advantage of it. And at the same time, when I say we, I am talking about that large amount. And I go back to Arian Tyson's comment about population control. Much of the population is controlled, just as I would like to agree with Lojo when he says we are all in react mode. And the reason that I want to say that is I want to put this out there to the young guys and the guys that are old. Question: which would you rather have at the 18-year-old you, right about to start college or right about to get out of the house? Would you rather have a college degree, good credit, or a big penis? 60-year-olds, would you rather have all of your bills paid off, a happy family, or a working penis?
All of them. Yeah, all of them. But I get where you're coming from. Let me let me throw this out here because I think this is really important, right? And definitely, like, hey,
I gotta say this. That's not.
Right.
No, bro. You don't want no choices, bro. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, all right, I'm done.
Oh man, that's hilarious. But let me give this some context. So, elevating man, there's a couple things that we teach: the 4 quarters of life. What you should be doing at different phases in your life: 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. And in one of those points, we talk about the time that you should kind of start looking towards marriage, and a number that we picked was 30, right? And it has to do with maturity. So this goes back to this entire conversation. We are growing up completely differently than they did back then. Really think about it. So we go back to 1920s where they're running a farm. They're starting this work at 7, 8 years old. What are our 7 or 8 year olds doing? They're sitting on their tablet all day playing video games, right? There's very little responsibility. If you think about very small things that had to happen, clothes being washed, it was done by hand, it had to be hung up. Now we push a button, right? Dinner had to be started earlier. There had to be wood stoves and fires started and things like that. Now we just flip a switch. And so there was so much more work and responsibility that we were grooming our children to be responsible so much earlier. Now we have so long to dwell in immaturity, that I think that we should actually put off building a family until we reach the maturity that is relevant to today's day and time, right? And for most men, not all, it depends on your upbringing and what you're accustomed to. But for most men in today's society, I feel that we really aren't mature enough to handle the responsibility of a monogamous relationship and a family until we're around the age of 30, because everything is delayed now. We get out of school later, we take on responsibility later, we play longer. It's a completely different ball game. Lojo, you have something to say?
Well, I wanted to go back to, you had made a statement about responsibilities back in the 20s versus now. And I think, and it's probably still the same to a certain extent. I believe that a lot of that is a derivative on socioeconomic, right? Back in the 20s, of course, it probably wasn't happening in a lot of your black homes, or, I would just say it was probably happening predominantly in white homes or Caucasian homes, is where you had, the maid come in, and, she took care of the house or whatever like that, and so the kids still didn't necessarily have certain things that they really had to be responsible for. They were allowed to go play in the pond or whatever the case may be. So I think a lot of responsibility has to deal with socioeconomic, or socioeconomics has a ton to play into what kids are responsible for.
That's a good point. And so, with that being said, do you believe that children who come from a better socioeconomic position mature at any faster rate? And do you feel that they may possibly be more prepared for marriage and family sooner than, say, someone in a lower socioeconomic state?
No, absolutely not. No, because I think that's where, number one, I think home structure does have somewhat to play into that. When you as a kid, if you come up in a 2-parent home where you see good love and what that looks like, that can almost be a slippery slope, right? Because you're like, well, I saw my mom and dad and they were in love, so I'm just going to replicate that, because I already know. I've seen it my entire, childhood life. So that can be an extremely slippery slope. When we talk about being prepared for marriage and things like that, no, I think the structure is the same regardless of your socioeconomic upbringing. I think that it's important for uh, a 10-year-old poor kid to still be a kid, right? Whether he has money, or whether he or she has money, or whether or not they don't have money. I think it's important for them to be a kid, to explore, to learn certain things about life. Early 20s, right? You're still understanding, learning about life. Now, maybe you have somewhat of an idea because maybe you saw it in your home, right? Because we see broken homes where it's 2-parent homes and they're still broken. But if you see the right type of love, you do have uh, tools to operate within, to a certain extent. But I still think that exploratory, uh, it still matters, right?
Makes sense.
That still matters for sure.
Okay, Andrew.
So I'd like to offer, maybe ask a little bit, us do a little bit more research on that, because what I'm trying to hear kind of goes with what Robert Hawkins was saying. His comment, we had to stay together for survival reasons. But when Lojo was saying something similar to, it didn't really matter, socioeconomic, poor, rich, I would like to believe that many of the poor kids, and that was the 90%, not the 10%, but the 90%, and that was Black, white, Hispanic, other, and Native American. But other that other group that did have the maid coming in, I would like to believe that maybe there was a little bit more preparation on their societal understanding, because they were society. They were the social, they were setting the social standards. They were the hiring people, meaning their kids weren't playing. Their kids were off at boarding school. Their kids were off at preparatory academies. And you still hear those words today. Their kids were sent away to learn how to get to their next stage. So I don't think, I think they were actually preparing to run this world that we were going to be reacting to.
That's a good perspective. Good perspective. Got to go to the youngest person on the panel, since we're talking about age and maturity and things like that. And so, Josh, I just want to ask you this: among your peers, being an early 20-something, do you feel that the maturity of your peers is at the level of a 20-something way back when? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it is partially, but it depends a lot on the individual. I see a lot of my classmates, we all just graduated and we're all completely on different sides of the spectrum. Some of us still haven't grown up. Some of us are, some of them are married already. Like, I had a friend, she was married at 19 and she just moved to Florida and she's living her life there. She's got a job and everything. She was on the higher side of the socioeconomical spectrum, but I think that we are pretty on par with 1920s 20-year-olds. I think that there's been a much more push for us to be ready to take on the world just because everything's happening so much faster. Entrepreneurship has really taken a huge leap in these past few years, especially with social media and the internet in general.
Mm, mm. Very, very good points. Because yeah, when you have more access to information, it does lend to you needing to mature quickly to be able to process that and apply it to your life in any way. Man, this always happens every time we have a show, man. It's 9 o'clock. We got like 1 minute left. And so like you said, this is a 4-part series. We're going to be breaking down everything from religion, politics, relationships, etc., as it relates to the time spectrum, right? Old school versus new school. And so we appreciate having our special guest Josh come on and give us the millennial perspective, or what's that, Gen Z? Something
Yeah,
like that.
Gen Z theoretic. Yeah.
What's
I
after Gen Z? What's after Gen Z? Anybody know?
think it's
Generation
Y.
Alpha or something like that?
I think, is it Y? Generation Y after Gen Z? I think it's Y.
So yeah, I don't know. But whatever generation we in, we got that going on. But for all of you that are tuning in now, we definitely appreciate your support. Please do us a favor. Give us a heart, give us a like, let Facebook and YouTube know that there's a good conversation going on here. Please share this to your own personal page so that you can carry on the conversation within your own circle and within your own network. Because again, conversation is the foundation for change. And if we want to improve things, we got to talk about it first, right? And so before we sign off, I definitely just want everyone to kind of, introduce yourself again, let people know how to get in contact with you. And I'll go ahead and start with you, LaRon.
Absolutely. Listen, you can find me on Facebook at LaRon the Motivator. You can find me also just at LaRon Barnes on Instagram, or LaRon08 on Instagram, or LaRon Barnes on Facebook. But also, hey, definitely, I'm a life coach. I'm a motivational speaker. If you're looking to transform your lives, looking to go to the next level, looking to get unstuck in business personally, give me a shout. I'm all about blessing people. So hit me up and let's get things going and rolling.
Awesome. Lojo.
You can find me everywhere. Facebook, Instagram. I think I even got a Twitter, even though I don't use it. You can either find me at Lauren Jones, or you can find me at Lojo Speaks. Hey, if you're looking for a used car, holler at your boy. And I can take care of you. Real quick, I want to thank you, gentlemen, on this panel. Because I know I'm a firm believer in steel sharpens steel. So thank y'all for everything y'all pouring into me to help me keep my blade sharp.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. AB, Andrew Boykin.
So you can find me at restin2050.org, restin2050.org. Are things changing between yesterday and today? Not in this world, or not in this socioeconomic branch, because the very same topic of discussion that we're having today, it started back in those days, and it hasn't changed.
Tired of you negative older people.
Well, that's what this generation rap is about. By the end of the series, we're gonna get to the bottom of all that, right? We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna bridge the gap. Josh, our special guest, just let people know how to find you and anything that you'd like to use as final words.
I mean, if you want to find me, you can find me on Facebook at Josh
Yeah, they want to
Castaneda.
find you, man.
Castaneda, Castaneda. But no, I think that there is a gap between the generations. But if we really open the conversation and try to understand each other, I think it'd be closed pretty quickly.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like the what was the letter? The slavery letter. I can't think of it right now. It's almost there, but it talked about separating us. Willie Lynch. There we go. Willie Lynch letter. It talked about separating us by, skin color, by gender, but it also threw in their age, the young against the old. And so, we're going to try to tackle that. I'm A.L. Johnson. You can find me on Facebook and YouTube. Those are my main places. I'm also a life insurance agent. I help protect families and I help them build a legacy, a financial legacy, just making sure that if anything ever happens, the family is taken care of, which is extremely important. If you'd like more information on that, visit aljohnsongroup.com. And to keep up with everything that we're doing as a group, Elevating Men, you can go to elevatingmen.com. Also subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our Facebook page for any additional updates. Thank each and every one of you for tuning in. Again, share this. We'll be back next Monday, same time, same place. You all, thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.